everybody. Welcome to What Brings Us Together. This is going to be an awesome episode. I had a really good time recording it, but I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. Right now, I'd really like to talk about neck pain. Guys, I don't know what's going on. A couple weeks ago, I started feeling this weird thing. I woke up one day, I was like, my neck, when I turn it a certain way, it hurts. And then it kind of went away. And then this morning, and then this week, it was there just sporadically. Someone at work was like, you look like you were in some kind of pain when you turned your head. And I was like, yeah, just this little kink. I think it's when I sleep, and it's like, it goes away sometimes. Today, I woke up, and I feel like someone stepped on my goddamn neck. And I almost, ow, that really hurt. It really hurt. Just there. I just did something. I'm barely moving my head. I have to look like a person in traction. You know, just because I'm just very still. I'm trying to be very still. Oh, God help us all. Anyway, so today's guest, everyone, is pretty unbelievable. Today's guest is Grandmaster Melle Mel from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Mel is really just one of the most amazing dudes I've ever met. I met him through our friend Baron Ambrosia, who I have to say a tremendous thank you to Baron Ambrosia. He put the whole thing together. He introduced me to Mel. He hosted us where we actually recorded it at Baron's house. He was awesome and instrumental in making this happen. So I cannot say enough great words about Baron Ambrosia. If you do not know who Baron Ambrosia is, we've done a podcast with him before. You should just check him out. Google his name. Support everything he does because he is an awesome, awesome guy. But I actually met Mel for the first time, really, at Baron Ambrosia's 4th annual Bronx Pipe Smoking Association small game dinner. I got it. Didn't think I was going to get through it. And, you know, I just interviewed him actually really quick. He was on the podcast for 2 seconds. I just asked him about the importance of the event and, you know, it to the Bronx and this and that. And he was great. And then, you know, Baron has been working on some stuff with Mel and he needed my help. And so I came out to Baron's house and we did some stuff. And I ended up talking to Mel and Baron, obviously, for a while, and really had a good talk with him about music and about we talked about Michael Jackson for like 20 minutes, and man, he's got a real love, man. I mean, as we all should, but he really spoke very eloquently about Michael Jackson and a lot of his experiences with Quincy Jones and things like that. And that was really kind of the moment where I was like, man, I'd really love to talk to this guy. What a run he's had. The more I started looking into it, and obviously I know the message, and you know, that song is just so important and really has a timeless quality to it. I say that in the interview and you'll hear it, so I won't go too deep, but and not just the message, White Lines, and yeah, obviously the stuff he did with Sun City, that we get all that stuff gets brought up in the podcast. I'm getting tongue tied right now, but you know, Mel is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, I mean, that is incredible, and his importance on music, of course in hip hop, but just in general is really huge, and that kind of the social consciousness lyrically, you know, what he was able to do with that in the very beginnings of hip hop is just extraordinary. And he's really like nobody else, and a sweet man, and a great guy to talk to. I really after the podcast was over, we kind of just all hung out, had some food, and talked for like 2 hours, man, and it was just amazing. He's really, really great, and I cannot wait to see him again. And I thank him and thank Baron Ambrosia for doing this. So that's coming up in just a second. If y'all's people could go to bringsustogether.com, check out our blog that will be getting some more stuff on it shortly. Our Facebook page, Twitter, it's all there on bringsustogether.com. Send me an email, like us. Also go into iTunes and rate the podcast. Leave a comment if you could, guys. You've been doing it, and I appreciate it. We could use some more help in the department, so that'd be really great. I think that's all I have for right now. So with that and my neck pain that has left me really almost incapacitated, here's episode 56 with Grandmaster Melle Mel.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with a tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Standing on the front stoop, hanging out the window, watching all the cars.
Where exactly did you grow up, man?
I grew up in the Bronx, like around Fort Apache in that area. I don't know exactly what you call the area, but 100 63rd Street, Tiffany Street, all in that area. I lived in a bunch of places in that area.
And I think it's pretty interesting, Mike. I'm from New York myself, and like you, I mean, you grew up in New York in the 60s and 70s, basically, right?
Right.
What was at that time? What was it like growing up in that neighborhood at that time? I mean, that is something. It's drastically different now.
Yeah. Well, the Bronx was definitely more of a depressive kind of neighborhood when I was young. Changed is very different now, but very depressive. You know, a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of in the early 70s, a lot of heroin. That was the drug of choice.
Sure.
So it was a lot of dope fiends running around, and just when you grow up around something like that, it's almost like that's kind of like the norm. So it was nothing for some strange dope fiend to knock on the door just to ask for some water so he could shoot up.
Sure.
And that was the neighborhood. You know, a lot of and the gangs, of course. There was a lot of street gangs. That was really big. So it was definitely an interesting place to grow up in, to say the least.
Sure. And were your parents from the Bronx too, or?
No, my mother was from Georgia and my father's from South Carolina. And in some kind of way, they wound up in the Bronx, and then we were born here.
Where in Georgia? I'm just curious.
My mother was born in Reedsville, Georgia.
Where's that?
Somewhere around Savannah, maybe.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
I'm thinking of moving to Savannah, actually.
Yeah, that's a nice little.
Yeah.
And my father's from Charleston.
Oh no, South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah.
Oh man, that's such a great. Do you get to go down there at all? Or?
I've been to Charleston a couple of times. Yeah.
It's a great town. Man.
Yeah,
it's really
it's still got that old fashioned feel to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. Are either parents musical at all, or?
Not musical as in playing music, but we was a musical family. Listened to a lot of music, a lot of different types of music.
Well, so what were some things when you were younger, man, that you heard a lot around the house, or you were gravitating towards? I mean, like really young, because that's a lot of that developmental stuff happens when you're, So what were some things that like got you early on?
Well, my father, he listened to a lot of different type of music. He listened to country music, Roy Clark, Buck Owens, all that kind of thing.
Owens.
Hee Haw was big in my house, and he listened to a lot of R&B. Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, all that kind of thing. So it was kind of well versed, and then on radio it wasn't like a big R&B station, so we listened to a lot of I guess it was top 40 around that time. Cousin Brucey and all that there. So we listened to a lot of different type of music. It was very diverse.
And were you because you write some pretty amazing lyrics. Did you get into book stuff when you were a lot younger, or like were you big into reading things, or where were your interests gravitating at a younger age?
Well, my interest when I was young, I was more like kind of like into comic books. Maybe I was more like a comic book kind of guy.
That's awesome.
My whole thing with education and reading is I was more or less not slow, but it was hard for me to pay attention. So when I read something, I'd read it like 3 or 4 times so that I could understand it.
Sure.
So even though my reading level wasn't great,
right,
my comprehension level was really good because I read it and made sure that I understood what I was reading.
Totally.
So that's what kind of gave me an edge as far as writing, and then as far as just my basic understanding of things, you know what I mean? Because if I read something, and then even it went on to even if somebody's talking or if I'm listening to the news, I'll listen to it to make sure, not that I heard it, but to make sure that I actually understood what it is that I heard.
Sure, absolutely. What were some specific records for you as you were getting older and like getting more into music and stuff like that? What were some like things? I mean, you mentioned some of the stuff your dad was into, but some stuff that really hit you when you were like in your early teens and stuff like that. Because I know for me that was when I really started to go crazy with the music thing.
Yeah, well, early teens it was like, of course, the Jackson 5.
Totally.
They was that was a real influence, and when the Parliament thing came out, so we was big. That was a big like a whole kind of little cool the funk movement.
Just, when the mothership landed on Earth.
So yeah, that was, and they was really influential on my upbringing, basically.
I mean, you really got, especially with Parliament, you got to see a pretty interesting scope because, I mean, like, funk music before that band and then what happened with them, I mean, they're like from a different dimension, man. Like, they are really on a different level and played it. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being, like, when that shit was really happening, being able to actually swallow that shit and be like, oh my god.
They was definitely like the apex, because it was more like kind of like Kiss meets the Ohio Players. They had a whole little, they just had a whole little vibe going on that was. It was more like a revolution. It was more like the revolution and the evolution of the music, even beyond the music. You know what I mean? And it really that really kind of influenced what we was doing and in a lot of what we was thinking even back then.
Totally. Let me see. I read somewhere that your mom Native American? Is that right?
She's half Native American. Yeah.
Was there any Native American culture growing up, or was it just a thing? Did she ever have any connection with it? It was just kind of that was just what it was.
Yeah, that was just never really connected with that side of her, growing up, and it never influenced the family. We was just some brothers from the hood.
Yeah, doing what you're doing. What was your dynamic with your brother as far as because he was in the group with you,
right?
And was that when you were once again teenager starting to get into this stuff? Was that a thing, you guys working together doing stuff, or how did that really start to work?
Yeah, we was always real close when we was coming up, me and Cree. And, we could always work good together. Like in a three-legged race, we was like, they used to have the play street on the block.
Yeah.
And in a three-legged race, we was like the block champion because we could, we had good coordination together.
Totally.
So we was always real close. And when we started getting into the music, before we even touched the mic or mess with Flash and them, we had already worked out whole routines. So we could have went off and did a show by ourselves without anybody.
What kind of stuff were you doing at that
point? Like kind of back and forth material. Like we write a rhyme and then we split it up, and he take one part, I take the other part, and we just keep going back and forth. Nice,
awesome.
Real, skillful kind of thing.
So where did that start to come from? Because there was no basis for comparison for that. There really wasn't.
Right.
That had to come from somewhere. So
it was something we did, but by way of listening to what Herkinen was doing. But their whole thing was just one guy on a mic, and Coke LaRock, he wasn't a DJ, he would just rap.
Right.
But we just listened to what they did, and then we took what they did, and then kind of more or less formulated it to where it was more of a routine than just because their thing was just like spur of the moment. They play a record and then they'll just talk over the record and then let the record finish playing, say something before they finish the record, bring it in. Whereas our thing was more or less tailored to somebody playing music while we was doing it.
Yeah.
So we made it into actual routines. That's and just something that was just there to complement the record. We had the music would be more of a compliment to what we was doing.
Way cool, man. Let's see. Were you, because obviously a lot of what you do has a lot to do, I don't want to say politics, but the politics of what's going on around me. Was that was that something that was always just you wanted to talk about and get it out, or was it? You're conscious of it because it's everywhere around you, but. Were you politically conscious at all at coming up and doing this stuff, or that just kind of evolved naturally? Yeah, that was the evolution. As far as what we was doing, the original concept of writing rhymes is writing rhymes about how good you can write rhymes. Mm-hmm. So that's the original concept of a master MC. Like the original concept was just saying stuff just to get people to have fun. So that was your that's 101. Totally.
Just to make people have fun. Yeah, that's 101. And then the next concept was when you graduate, you write rhymes about how good you can write rhymes. Mm-hmm. And then after that, while everybody was doing that and we was all into the fun era and we was entertaining, then my whole thing was to try to say something different, because my ideology behind anything is people pay for the difference. They don't pay for the same.
Absolutely.
So, I was, thinking of what I could say that's different from what everybody else was saying. And then I just, started, and as a matter of fact, the first blueprint that I used was Stevie Wonder, Living for the City.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So when he said, a boy is born in Hard Time, Mississippi, and then when I did my rhyme, I said, a child is born with no state of mind. And that was so. And then I told my story from there.
Yeah.
But the original, the original blueprint was that record, Living for the City.
Shit.
And then so that made it I'm telling the basic story about somebody that would grow up, in the hood and what they would go through and then how it all ends out. And that was my first serious rhyme.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I did not know that. That's one of my favorite songs. I mean,
yeah,
that whole
it's a great
record
song.
is just unfucking believable.
It's a great song.
Absolutely. So how did you guys first start hooking up with Flash, and how did the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five actually start?
Well, Flash started out. We were all dancers, and even Flash, he could dance even a little bit, but I guess he knew how to DJ. But we all were dancers and b-boys. That's what they would call it. That's what Hercules called it, b-boys. And when Flash came to the neighborhood, the first time I seen Flash, he was with a DJ called Mean Gene, who happened to be Theodore's brother, which is another famous DJ that grew up on the Flash. So they came, and we was in a after school center where we used to come and b-boy, So they came and they talking smack because Mean Gene was a good b-boy and Flash could b-boy a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we did, we burnt Flash and Mean Gene, like we just toasted them. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And then we found out that Flash could actually DJ, and we seen that he was he was a good DJ. He had good DJ skills.
Sure.
And what wound up happening was the neighborhood, because Flash wasn't from that neighborhood. He wasn't from. I don't think Flash was even from the Bronx.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But he came into the neighborhood, and the neighborhood kind of draped itself around Flash.
No shit.
Like we became his dancers, and then we later on became his MCs, and all the people that we partied with, or that we went to parties with, or that knew we was partying. They were the first people to come to our parties. So it kind of draped itself around Flash. Flash
amazing.
wasn't really a part of the neighborhood like that. He was more or less a transplant. Like I said, I don't think Flash is even from the Bronx. He lived in the Bronx because we were in the Bronx.
Sure.
But he might be from Queens or something like that. He wasn't a homegrown kid like the rest of us.
So how did the party scene work? Getting all that stuff together at the time.
Well, it started out like you'd have to give a block party first, because if you didn't have, the main thing was to get clientele, and in the summer you would give block parties, and then that's how you would get known. So then when it started getting cool, then you could charge money, because in the summer it was hard to charge money because it was hot, Then very few of the places was actually air conditioned, so it would be like a sweat box. That's what they called it. It was like a sweat box in the summertime.
Sure.
So he came out and we did the little local block parties, and coming into the like that was in the summer of '76.
Right.
So coming into the fall of '77.
Okay.
That's when we started doing our first indoor parties.
Okay.
And it was in a place called the Black Door, a little matchbox spot. You had to go downstairs to get in.
That's cool.
And we charged, I don't know, I think it was like $1.50. It was something
That's
small,
crazy.
$5 maybe. And that was how it started. We got in touch with there was a guy called Ray Chandler, and he actually not necessarily promoted parties, but he started promoting our parties, and that's when our name was Black Dude. We called it Black Door Production, because the first spot that we actually did was in a spot called the Black Door.
Man, that's crazy. And so the party, did they just start exponentially growing like relatively quickly, or?
Yeah, because see, and what was really kind of odd, like when you go back and do it from memory, you would think that it took a long time to evolve, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
Because we got ourselves established in '77, and Rappers Delight came out in '79 when we were fully established. So in them 2 years, everything went from us just doing a block party and maybe 20 people came to us doing the Audubon Ballroom and 3,000 people came. Man. And all with no radio, just all word of mouth and us passing out flyers.
That's incredible.
So it happened really quickly. Like, and if you were to ask the average guy that was even there, in our minds, it's something like 5 years. But if you really go into the chronology of how it all happened, it was only 2 summers. It was '77 and then '78, and then that next year, Rappers Delight came out, and then that changed everything.
I was about to say, so that is clearly a pivotal moment, and how significant did you notice a difference after that was like a monster, the hit that it was?
the main thing about Rappers Delight that affected us was that, number one, we all hated the record. Because it was like ABC. It was like, there was like, you know.
It's kind of cute, yeah. I mean,
one of the guys, we knew him. He wasn't even a rapper. He was just a guy that was down with the Cold Crush.
Yeah.
And that was Big Bang Hank. So we knew he wasn't even a rapper, so it was phony to us. He was like a non-rapper trying to rap. And, you know, back in the day, that's not how it worked. If you was a DJ, you DJed. If you was a rapper, you rapped. If you was a dancer, you danced.
Yeah.
And the other two guys, they were unknown. So they was like, you know, we thought it was the worst record ever. And then people would approach us and say, you know what, y'all should make a record like that. And we was like, how the fuck we gonna do that? That's the worst shit we ever heard. You know, we had ever heard. But it caught on with the public so like it was just like not even viral, super duper viral.
Yeah.
And it changed it changed the whole dynamics of what the industry was, because it wasn't about the parties necessarily no more. It made it like, you know, you have to go in the studio, you gotta, you know, try to be commercial with it.
Sure.
It wasn't as raw, so you had to be more commercial, and that was the major change. Like it took it from, you know, and I can't say that it was a change for the better. I mean, at the end of the day, we did benefit from it, but sure. I can't necessarily say it was a change for the better, because it made it so that more non-rappers or non-music people could do what it is that we do. And that was the thing that kind of hurt it, you know what I mean?
That's interesting, because there's definitely a parallel with that, with like even now with the modern recording thing, and a lot of people do. We talked about this, you know, before, about like people getting their hands on some software and thinking they can do this stuff when they really can. I mean, once in a while you get somebody who does something great, but overall, no, it changes the game like that.
Yeah, because it's just like I said, it is, you know. And I'm a firm believer on let the experts do what they do.
Yeah. And
then if you're not an expert, just whatever it is you do, paint a house, wash a car, you know, pump some gas. Yeah. But, you know, stay away from the sharp knives. You might put somebody's eye out. You know what I mean? And that was the beginning of that right there. That was Rappers Delight. That was, you know, and even though the best thing to come out about it, as far as was the record company, Sugar Hill Records, but you know, financially it wasn't beneficial. But I mean, as far as the long term effect that it had on our career, it came out on the positive side.
Sure. So how did you get your first deal? How did that actually work out?
Well, our first deal was with a company called Enjoy Records. Now, as a matter of fact, our original deal was with a company called Brass Records. And we went in the studio, and it wasn't even a real deal. We just cut the record. And then he put the record out, and there was no paperwork on it or nothing. Yeah. And it was the song was called We Rap More Mellow. And he didn't even put it out on our name. He put it out under the younger generation. Huh. That was the name of the record and the group. And then we did that same record, the lyrics, with another guy called Bobby Robinson on Enjoy Records. And he was Spoonie G's uncle. He had the Treacherous Three on his label. He had us. He had Spoonie. He had a couple of groups. And his claim to fame was, like, he had a lot of groups before they became famous. Like, I think he had, like, Gladys Knight. Like, he had a couple of big groups before they became famous. Right. And true to form, he had all of us. And we all went to Sugar Hill Records after Rappers Delight came out. It's like he sold all his acts. And then we all went to become famous. So true to form, it's like he was the guy that founded all of these great acts, but he never, he never really got the mainstream success off it.
What happened to him, do you know?
He died maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. But for years he owned a big record store down on 125th Street. Bobby's Record.
That's incredible, man. I mean, there's those people in certain scenes who are like these pivotal people that just are there, that are so important in getting people situated with where they got to be, but don't really see.
Yeah, and I guess that was just his destiny.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how it works.
He was a record guy,
Yeah.
And like I said, his claim to fame was he had a lot of them, but he never could hold on to them after they went big. He just, I guess he was that was the platform, you know.
And what about like just the DJ culture in general at that time, man? I mean, you really got to see the full swing. I mean, clearly, and you know, watching people do this stuff for the first time and like get incredibly skilled at it quick. I mean, there had to be times, obviously, with Flash and other people where you were like, oh my god, this dude went from like fuck here to here like that. I mean, because that wasn't around a really, really long time for these dudes to get really slick at that. You know
right.
what I mean?
Well, the greatest, I think the greatest evolution as far as, would have to be what Flash did, because DJing was always around, but it was just, basically, from one turntable to the other turntable. Wasn't a lot of quick segues, but Flash was like that quick. He was that master of that quick mix.
Yeah.
He could scratch, and he did the backspin.
Yeah.
And once he came up with the backspin, that kind of revolutionized the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Because everything else is, they had transforming and other kind of tricks, but that was just more of an evolution of scratching. So with the scratching, and then when he put the backspin together with the quick mix, and that just kind of evolutionized that whole DJ culture, and it just took it to another level. It took it to I mean, even right now, I mean, no matter what's going on with the DJs, I mean, you got like a lot of real famous DJs that make top money, but they can't DJ as good as a hip hop DJ. Like they don't, their skill set is totally, is light years behind of what was going on, back then.
Yeah, no, totally.
Or that's going on right now.
Absolutely. No, you're right. There's dudes making tons of money who like have their skill set is not existent at all. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to that, man. So how did everything? I mean, leading up to like what was your first hit?
Our first hit was Freedom.
Okay, and like, how did your life start to change at that point?
Well, I remember the first time that we heard that record on the radio, and we was all standing around. It was a group of us. We on the street on Katona Avenue, like with all the guys that we would hang out with, and I think it was me, Cowboy, Scorpio, and my brother. And we standing, and we was like with maybe 5 other guys. So we just standing around talking shit, listening to the radio. And then the record came on. We didn't even expect it to be on the radio, but it came on. And for some reason, after the record came on, and by the time it went off, we was like we was all standing there huddled together. But by the time the record went off, we was like 10 feet away from them. For some reason, it was like, it just a distance came in between us.
Interesting.
And right after that, we went on tour. Like maybe about a week later, we were supposed to go and do 3 shows over the weekend, and we stayed on tour for about a month and a half.
And where'd you go?
It was like all over. It was it was with a promoter called Al Heyman. He had a promotion called Tiger Flower Productions.
Uh-huh.
And he did like all the big tours around that time, the big R&B tours. And like I said, I guess they must have wanted to just try us out for like the weekend. And the first show wasn't all that great because we didn't really understand what we was really doing. We never played in a coliseum,
right?
In front of a crowd that big. Like I said, he must have just wanted to try us out for a weekend. And that show we played with like the Commodores. It was like some big groups. So we wasn't all that great. Mm-hmm. And by the second show, we kind of really tightened it up so that it was, no holes, because we didn't have the first problem that we had. We weren't a band. Uh-huh. So we was just 5 guys and some turntables.
Yeah.
And every time the music would stop, somebody would say, "Where's the drummer? Who's going to play the guitar?" You know what I mean? So we had to tighten up so that there was less holes in the show.
Yeah.
About the second show, we did that, and then I guess the show was good enough, and the record started getting hot.
Yeah.
As that week came in, and they just kept us out on tour. So we stayed on tour for like about a month and a half.
And so, how those early audiences, when they were seeing this on tour for the first time, especially outside of New York, how were they reacting to it? I mean, obviously,
it was totally. It was like culture shock.
Yeah,
it was like us coming in from New York, and no band, just 5 guys and a mic. We had costumes. You know what I mean? And it was definitely culture shock. We had to, like I said, any lull in the action.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And they would start asking where the band was. Even after they seen us like backstage, or if we walked around and signed autographs, they would always ask where because they were never used to seeing turntables as an act.
Right.
So we had to get the public at large used to it.
I mean, one thing people, at least ignorant people, don't like is change. I mean, you had to experience that in the beginning when people were like, what the fuck is this, man?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, was that something that was happening pretty regularly, or were you pretty well received in general? Like,
Well, even hip-hop in general, a lot of people
yeah.
just didn't understand just the concept of it, or even, the other acts. The only performer that actually understood or even liked what we was doing was Rick James.
No shit.
Like, he was the only one that actually recognized, how important we was. Because, I mean, everybody else, even the promoters, they would give us like a little funky deli tray. Somebody probably picked through it or, stuck their dick in it or something. You don't know what they did with it. But, and we would never, everybody else would eat hot food.
Yeah.
We had like if it was Cameo, us, Zap, and the Barcades, it's like how the whole thing would be set up. Cameo's equipment would be in the back. Barcade's equipment would be in front of that. Zap's equipment would be in front of that. And then it was about, where we're standing was about the space that we had for the turntables and the 5 MCs. And they would be like, don't touch any of our shit.
Yeah.
So you had a stage that might have been like, 150 feet long, but we was confined into this little, into like a little, 12-foot, space. And it was rough until we got to our second and third hit and really proved ourselves as far as entertaining the crowd. Yeah. And really Rick James was the one that helped us because he passed around the word like, yo, those are my boys, y'all got to start treating them all right. So then we got, a food ticket and ate hot food and, we got a little bit more room on the stage.
So did he seek you out because he heard your songs, or how did you actually meet him?
Well, Rick, when we was on tour with Rick, he used to see us backstage, and we used to have weights backstage, and we would be working out. So we'd be working out, and some of the security guys would work out with us.
Sure,
you know what I mean. And he would see that, and I guess that was the first thing that caught his attention.
Yeah,
and then he used to stand behind stage and watch us, like but he'd have on like a big Jamaican hat, like in disguise basically, and just seeing what we was doing. And he just dug what we was doing. He was the one guy that actually dug it. And he was he was our idol anyway. I mean, Slick Rick James.
Yeah.
And he met us, and we jocked him hard.
Yeah.
And he respected us.
That's great, man.
He definitely got us a lot of respect in the industry.
I mean, he's clearly another one of those guys who is just on another level, man.
Yeah.
The music that guy made, he's like so underappreciated. I mean, like, really as a musician, I mean, he was so fucking talented. And unfortunately, I think people think of him for the darker shit. Right. And I mean, it was cool that he got to play a little bit before he passed with Chappelle and all that stuff, but people really don't appreciate him the way he should be appreciated in music.
No, definitely a master musician.
Incredible.
I mean, production-wise, he Mary Jane Girls and Tina Marie. He produced some. He's definitely a talented guy. I mean, it's just unfortunate, that he ran into the little drug thing and that kind of, derailed it a little bit. But he did some good music. Like you said, he's definitely underappreciated.
Oh, no question, man. So, I mean, was the message the first video you made?
That was the first video, yeah.
And so, I mean, people weren't making a ton of videos at that time either. That was still a very, very new thing.
Right.
Whose decision was it to like, okay, we've got this song, we're gonna actually put this to film?
Well, the whole concept of us making the message was Sylvia Robinson. Mm-hmm. The message was originally supposed to be made for the Sugar Hill Gang because we had a record out around then and they didn't. Uh-huh. So she let them hear the record. And they didn't want to do it. Like Wonder Mike threw the tape across the street, and we didn't want to do it, But she is like, she ran the record company like it wasn't like it was a democracy. It was her company, so she's going to put out what she wanted to put out. Sure. And I came to the conclusion in my head, if she's going to put this record out, then this is the record that we need to be on. And that's going to be the next record that she's going to have out. And she took that One Child Is Born rhyme and put it on the end of the record. And And it took like 3 days to mix because back then it was analog. It wasn't like digital, and it wasn't a lot of automation. But it was like she took 3 days. Nobody could come in the studio. Nobody could touch the board.
Yeah.
The record was finally mixed, and when they put it out, it just so happened to be a awesome record. Yeah. And then she had the idea to do the video after the record, started taking off. So we, it was one of the first hip hop groups to actually do a official rap video.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there are not a lot of songs that can sound fresh decades after they came out. I went back today because I knew we were going to sit down and I listened to it again. I mean, that's a song that you just hear all the time, and like that song still to this day sounds so fresh and is still so relevant, and that's a credit to you guys, man. I mean, that is just some. I mean, you've got to hear it. There's got to be a certain point where you hear it and like almost get. I mean, obviously nostalgic to a certain point, right? And it's something you still do when you play live when you do that, right? I mean, it's just one of those things that is just awe-inspiring to hear, and it's got to be odd for you to have been a part of that to a certain extent. Do you ever even think about it that way?
Yeah, well, the one thing that struck me about the message, even when I first heard it, like when we was sitting in the studio and we was doing the record, because it was written by. Me, and the main part of the record was written by a guy called Ed Fletcher. He's the other voice on the record, right. Duke Booty. But when we started laying the record and we was doing the record, it felt like I already heard the record while we was doing the record. That's how natural and how dynamic the lyrics were. That's how much of a fit, like something that like if we going through the motions of recording it, and then it was almost like. Telling the story of what I lived through and what I came from. And it was so natural. Like I said, it felt like I actually heard the song before.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those songs. I mean, you could do it over. I mean, I've done the song, thousands of times. I mean, it's definitely something you never get tired of doing it. I mean, it's a great... one of the great records. Yeah. And, I mean, they had I believe it was last year, they had a poll on the Rolling Stone magazine, top 500 songs ever made, and that record was I think it was like number 151, something like that. It was between a Prince song and a Smokey Robinson song, and it was the only rap record, that was in that top 200 or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. The scope, like I said, the scope of it. Let me see. So, you also had a huge hit with White Lines. Like White Lines, that's another one that is just like. I mean, you have like this a bunch of songs that you were associated with and wrote and had a lot to do with have these iconic parts to them that have just been. Just in the ether of music for the last bunch of years. When you were coming up with that stuff, I mean, what I'm assuming from the title of the song, a lot of the dark shit that had to be going on at that time for you to. Yeah. I mean, was that just a kind of being fed up with this and let's talk about it? Or how did that whole thing work out?
No, well, it first turned out just to be a basic party song because the music was by a group. Called Cavern, and the name of the song was Liquid Liquid. Yeah. Well, no, the name of the group was Liquid Liquid. The song was called Cavern. Okay. But it was popular in the clubs anyway. So that basic hip hop is you take a hit and you make a hit. Sure. So I took the song, and you could and you could almost hear like the words that I was singing in the melody line of the original song. So, but what happened was I had like a dream that we was coming into Roxy. And the song White Lines was playing in the dream. So that's how I got the idea for the song. I went in the studio. We laid the song down. This was just so happened when the group was breaking up. And that was the first song that I did on Sugar Hill by myself. Right. And we laid the song down. Lo and behold, I'm coming into Roxy on a Saturday night. Get right by where the door is. No shit. The song comes on just like it was in the dream.
That's amazing.
And it was like it was deja vu. Yeah. And at that time, a lot of radio stations in America didn't play the song because it was about cocaine. Sure. But it was super duper huge overseas. Yeah. Like in London, it broke a record at one point for being on the charts. And the only record at that time that was on the charts longer than White Lines was Frankie Goes to Hollywood. That record, Relax. Sure. That was the record that broke our record in London. So like over here, if we do a performance we'll do white lines and then we'll do the message. Overseas is the opposite. Mm-hmm. We have to do white lines after the message because that's how huge the record was. Overseas, it was ridiculously huge over there. Cause I guess they was more liberal on what they would play on the radio compared to how the FCC kind of was kind of cracking down on certain types of lyrics back then, which they don't do now.
Totally. I just want to see where I'm at here. What was it like working with Spike Lee that early in his career?
Well, you know what?
How did that whole thing come about too?
No, actually, what happened was this. Mr. Robinson, which is Sylvia's husband, calls me in the office, and he wants me to look at something. So he puts the tape in, the video comes on. Spike Lee joint. There's a guy he's walking around in a white suit, and they doing the little video off of white lines. Sniffing cocaine off the girl, and dancing around. I thought it was a nice video.
Sure.
And I said, who is that? He's like, some motherfucker, some college motherfucker. He did a record off our song. You know what I mean? And I said, you gonna use it? He's like, no, you ain't gonna. Then I said, well, what are you gonna tell him to do? I said, I told him go fuck yourself. Okay, long story short, about 9 years later, he called me. No, you gotta come here. You gotta come to the studio. But it's about 7 years later. You gotta look at this shit. I sit down. It's the same video.
Man.
A Spike Lee joint. This is after Spike Lee done took off. Spike Lee joint. It was all coming back to me. The guy in the white suit. And now I'm looking at the guy. I should have recognized him then, but it's Larry Fishburne.
Yeah.
And he's the guy in the video with the white suit.
That's incredible.
And he's excited now because of Spike Lee. So now he wants to put it out.
Sure.
He goes to call Spike Lee and say, could we put the video out? And Spike Lee sent back a message, go fuck yourself.
That's hilarious.
And so had he have been more, because he was just an old school record guy, had he been more conscious of what was going on, he would have actually discovered Spike Lee.
Man.
But
that's unbelievable. Man.
Yeah, but that's how. So it was just something that Spike Lee was like a college product.
Yeah.
He would, before he did anything really big. That's when he did that video. It was before any of the movies. That was just something that he did.
Yeah,
I
as a
guess
project in school. Yeah,
and it was a decent video actually. I mean, I thought it was good. But
that's crazy, man. So how did things start coming apart? I mean, you said before that White Lines was really, when they started, it was more you in the front. That it was Flash was kind of like not in it so much anymore. Is that right?
Well, Flash never was on any of the records anyway.
Okay.
Those was all, studio produced, and we just, the way they arranged the song, it would make it sound like it was cuts, and we just, said, I wrote the song or just arranged the song with the lyrics to make it sound like Flash was actually cutting, but he was never on any of the songs.
Okay.
I think things started falling apart when we actually put out the message, because everybody, before that, everybody was on every song, all of the rappers. After that, we started making, we made Survival, we made, the New York, and those were all the songs that it was just kind of me and Duke Booty. And, people have certain attitudes about certain things, or they feel a little different.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but the whole group was hooked on cocaine.
Yeah.
So that kind of exacerbated, the kind of creative kind of thing, or just, just the whole chemistry of what the group was about. And at one point, all the rest of the fellas wanted to leave the group and take the record company to court. But I knew that would take years.
Sure.
And I just, stayed with the record company. I went back and started, that's when we cut White Lines. We had a nice little run in 1984. We had a nice little run.
Yeah.
But, but that was basically it, between the dynamics of what the group was turning into after we made the message and cocaine.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning
That'll
of the end.
do it. I mean...
Yeah, it'll do it every time.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, obviously people taste a little bit of success and they see, they get jealous of people who are more in the forefront, and then you put a little powder in there and it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, that was definitely the perfect storm right there.
So, one thing that I actually forgot about until today, you were part of the Sun City, Steven Van Zandt Sun City project.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, how did you get involved with that?
I believe Steven Van Zandt had contacted the record company,
and this is after. This is this thing you were kind of doing more of your own stuff. At that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was a good project to do at that time, and we talked, and he wanted. He reached out to a lot of people. Though. I was a huge, that was a
big deal.
Yeah, really big. They had some really huge names.
Yeah.
And the one thing that stood out when we was doing it, we met downtown, like on maybe 59th Street.
I was going to ask you where it was.
So we was going to take a bus to Central Park. Like I think we shot something at Central Park. But they had a bus out there, and we was waiting for Bruce Springsteen. So we was just standing out, talking with Steven Van Zandt, like how we just standing around right here. And I'm looking to see, like the big limousine or, the tour bus come around the corner.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, there go Bruce right here. And Bruce Springsteen just turned the corner by himself.
Yeah.
No entourage, no bodyguard, no nothing.
He's
Hands
the real
in his
deal,
pocket,
man. Yeah.
Walking up the block. And this was hot. I mean, born in the USA, firecracker hot.
He's like literally the biggest fucking rock star in the world at that point.
Yeah. And he came around the corner by himself, very humble, and that taught me a major lesson, like as far as what being a real star really is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's about you, but it's about a whole lot of other stuff too. And his humbleness, and he was really cool, as far as how he treated because it wasn't like, if you were to do something like that now with, Beyonce, you would be talking to her handlers or Rihanna's handlers or JC's handlers.
Absolutely.
He didn't do that with him. And on the same bus, it was Bono, because U2 was in the video. Sure. So it was like some huge, future stars, but he didn't. He didn't really look down on nobody or nothing like that. He was he got on the bus, he took a seat, and we rode out, and we did what we had to do, and and it was, it was a great experience just to be around those caliber artists. Sure. and be in that company. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, but that really impressed me that Bruce Springsteen came around the corner by himself.
Yeah.
No security, no handler, no nothing.
Yeah.
It was just by itself.
I mean, plus what the project is about too. I mean, like that, what was going on at that time with apartheid, and like the fact that Stephen got all these like incredible people together and made this really dynamic thing that turned out to be a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing. So where exactly was it filmed? You said Central Park.
Yeah, the scene we was filming. I think it was somewhere in the Village, maybe. But then I definitely remember going to Central. We filmed some of it at Central Park.
Man, you have a great memory for this stuff. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. You have you're all very lucid about all this stuff. I mean, I've been asking you to dig up some shit a little bit, and you've been just, have a great memory. Good for you. Ginkgo biloba. Got some fucking
shit. See, I think I need to go on it.
So I want to pause on talking about music for a second. I mean, have you ever lived anywhere else? Have you always lived in the Bronx?
I lived in we moved to California for about about 8 years ago. We moved out there for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And
LA or
in Hollywood, and then in the Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you think of it when you were out there?
Well, Hollywood is good, but it's not for what I was there for. Uh-huh. It's not Hollywood is not to be discovered like that. It's some place, if you're already there, that you can go out there and capitalize on what's there, because Hollywood is big, but it's small. Like you can fit all of Hollywood in Central Park. Like the main part of what Hollywood is, it can fit in Central Park literally, and you might still have some park to spare.
Yeah.
So and there's no stars in Hollywood. They're not. You got a lot of people that's just on the way up. Right. You don't see. You won't see Dr. Dre and all of these guys that we was out there looking to see. Mm-hmm. They're not in Hollywood, so you would have to be kind of locked in. Great place to be. I mean, the good people, girls, parties.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there. It wasn't built for what we was out there to do. We was trying to, write another chapter in our career, and it was not, that's not what Hollywood is really all about.
Yeah. At
that level, you know what I mean? You gotta already have your flag, and then just go replant it out in Hollywood, sure. and then it's something else. You could write another chapter, but other than that, it's like, you just, you trying to make deals with people that ain't got a deal to make. It's like a bunch of up and comers, basically.
Totally.
well, like I said, while we're off music for just a sec, so we talked about this a little bit before I turned the mics on, but so you're a big Yankee fan. Huge. Obviously, I'm sitting here. You're in a Yankee hat and a Yankee jacket. So, for people that don't know, what are the Bleacher Creatures? How did that term even come up? I don't even know. I mean,
right? The Bleacher Creatures was a group of totally insane, rabid Yankee fans. Okay. I mean, like wild dogs, and I just so happened to fall in with these guys and. Had a great time. I mean, and actually, that was right after I stopped trying to use drugs. I went to a Yankee game just to get a new environment. You know what I mean? I wasn't really a big baseball fan.
Yeah.
And I went upstairs. I seen my brother. He was going to the game, and I haven't seen him for like 3 years.
Uh-huh.
So I bumped into him. We went up in the upper decks. He would sit in the upper decks, and you hear these guys making noise. He had binoculars. We look in the bleachers. And there's another rapper, Busy B. He's in the bleachers, and they party and they making noise. So the next time we go there, we go in the bleachers.
Man.
And they party and they rocking and rolling, and they had all the call and response, but and just cursing and carrying on.
Oh yeah.
And we had some good times, and that's when I stopped using drugs and I started drinking stadium beer, and that's how I stopped using crack.
Really.
Right? Yeah, going to the baseball games and smelling the grass, the bright lights.
Yeah.
Totally different environment.
Yeah.
And it worked. It was, it was therapeutic. It worked because
Absolutely.
It was a different environment. It was different kind of people, nobody that really, no party people, but we would, our party was back, in the bleachers.
Yeah, having some beers, watching the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Yankees in that time, and especially being, what the bleachers were in that time. I mean, it's really hard to explain to people who weren't there and how fucking nuts it was.
No, it was ballistic. and as a matter of fact, at a point in my career, more people knew me from going to Yankee games than from music in New York. Because like we would do a skit, and I used to do Stevie Wonder. I used to do like I Just Called to Say I Love You, and everybody would sing it. But I was more known for that. I got more publicity for that than doing music at the time.
I mean, I told you before we started, but I'm just going to repeat it again. So I was interviewing this guy from this band Pavement a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned I was going to talk to you, and he was like, dude, when I first moved to New York, I used to go to Yankee games all the time, and Mel was like this really big force in Yankee Stadium. Like, no, and he was like, dude, that was like a really big deal, and like, I just told that's incredible.
Huge. Yeah. One season we had got free tickets until we started tearing up the seats. I mean, we just
that's awesome.
We used to have bats and banging on the seats. After a while, we started tearing up seats. They was like, yeah, no more tickets for y'all.
So that was what I mean. We don't have to talk about drugs too much, but like, that was what really got you away from it, like having this new fresh environment and like.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like the whole nightlife thing and hanging out in clubs and and being around people that get high. You know what I mean? It's like and I mean the worst thing is like I wasted a lot of time, and then I watched a lot of people that was good people and some good girls.
Yeah.
And it just the whole thing went bad, especially after crack came out. I mean, cocaine was bad as it is, but I wasn't really a big on cocaine. I was just having it. I was more addicted to having it.
Yeah.
And then once crack came out, and I used to smoke.
Yeah.
And then that's where I tripped.
Yeah.
Because of smoking. And then I started smoking.
Yeah.
And then that's how. Like I said, you have to change your environment, change
Absolutely.
the people. Like I say, person, places, and things. And you just change what you're doing, and we had a lot of fun at the game. So that was the new high.
That's
just going
great,
to
man.
the games and and being around different type of people and having fun.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that you were able to do it that way is kind of amazing. That you found this way to focus your energy that way is incredible, man. That's
and there's one thing about doing that, and I guess you could do it in Madison Square Garden. Maybe you could probably do it in Giants Stadium, but you could definitely do it in the Yankee Stadium because it was so much history involved.
Yeah.
It was just bigger than the game. I mean, it's like if you sitting in Yankee Stadium and you in the same area where the greats of the game, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, and you in the same park Thurman Munson played in, and and it's just all of this history, that's going on, and you could feel it. It's like you could, if you're a vibe person, you could actually feel that vibe, like there's an electricity. It was something going on there.
Oh, no doubt.
And it exhilarated you. It was actually better than a high. You know what I mean? It was better than a high because you're someplace where something really happened there. Reggie Jackson and all those things happened right there. And like I said, it's an energy. You could feel it. It was there.
Who were some of your favorite players in the 80s, man?
I liked Don Mattingly, of course, and Willie Randolph.
Winfield, fucking Winfield.
Dave, I wasn't too big on Dave because he was a great player, but he wasn't a great Yankee.
Okay, why do you say that?
He was. Steinbrenner called him Mr. May. He wasn't. I don't know how many times I've seen Dave Winfield. we love Dave Winfield. I used to do. He used to have the Dave Winfield Foundation, and I used to, go do the foundation, go to schools, talk to kids. So I was,
good with Dave.
But good. Yeah. But he wasn't. Even Ricky Henderson.
Yeah,
he was a great player. He wasn't a great Yankee.
Oh, definitely.
I learned what a hamstring was by being a fan of the Yankees, and because the whole time he was here, my hammy, mom was like, "What's a hammy?"
Yeah.
And then somebody had to explain to me, it's a muscle that's in the back, and if you pull that muscle, it's hard to heal, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of and they had a great team.
Yeah.
But I think if everybody had the heart that Don Mattingly had, it would have been it was the one. The one, even when the Yankees had that string where they won all them championships, and every time they would win a championship, the only thing that I would think of was, what the hell is Don Mattingly doing now? And it was kind of, just made me, made me depressed a little bit.
Yeah, well, the real shit of it is the one year it looked like they were going to do it when he was still on the team. In the 90s, they had the fucking strike, and it was over. And that turned out to be, I think, his last year, too.
Right.
And that was just devastating. He was such the core of that team at that time.
He was the heart and soul, and he was a gutty, gritty player, like Donnie Baseball. I'm still pissed off that they didn't make him the manager of the team.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't play for Donnie, if you can't play for Don Mattingly in New York, I don't know. You shouldn't even have on the pinstripes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hear you,
that
man.
was his era, and that was the era that we went to all those games. It was the Don Mattingly era.
I went to so many games in the 80s, man. I like Dave Rigetti and all that stuff. And there really was something, you said it perfectly, like electric and special, and you could feel it all over the place.
Right, and those wasn't even the games that they were winning.
Right, they were losing. They were really losing.
That was in a little bad, and they had some good players.
Steve Sachs.
Ken Griffey. They had Ken Griffey sing. They had the guy Jesse Barfield. They had a bunch of good players, but the team could never click. Even Dave Rigetti. We used to be like, they used to have a chant, "Pray for Rigetti."
Yeah, totally.
Like, you never know you never know. And the only constant really was Willie Randolph and definitely Don Mattingly. That was that was the one consistent thing about the Yankees.
Yeah, totally, man. So, back to the music thing for a sec. So, how did you actually get to work with Quincy Jones? How did that come about?
Well, I guess I got to work with Quincy because Quincy was one of those kind of guys that he liked to understand what's basically going on. Mm-hmm. And I guess he did the same thing with Dre, and he probably did it with Tupac and all these guys. Like when they was hot, he invite you over, have a talk with you, pick your brain a little bit. And me and Quincy just, he's definitely one of the smartest guys, and
no doubt.
And as far as how he deal with people, and just to put the right people to make a project come together.
Sure.
And every time he did a project, he kind of like added me in there,
That's
because
great.
I was we was really close. See, even to this day, he send me a Christmas card every year.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a really
he's a class act, man.
Yeah, influential, very influential person. A lot of people wrote me off, and then remember one time he had sent word through Andre Harrell that he was just looking for me, like he wanted to get in touch with me, like, you know. And that's when I was, you know, getting high and I'm all whacked out, didn't have a phone.
Yeah.
And I've seen Andre Harrell. Andre told me, you know, gave me Quincy's number, said to give Quincy a call. And I called him, you know, I'm thinking it's going to be this big deal or something going on. And he just wanted to see how I was doing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And that changed my whole, you know, like, how am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't doing all that great, you know.
Yeah.
And just to keep it, you know, like, you know, knowing that he was thinking about me made me actually think about myself.
Yeah. And
I kind of started trying to put it back together, you know what I mean?
Man.
And that was a big boost. But, you know, Quincy's definitely, you know, one of the more stand-up guys. I mean, if you had 10 guys like Quincy, the world would probably be a different spot.
I'm sure. I know one of the things you did with him, you won the first Grammy for the best rap performance duo or group.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some pretty amazing shit.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's I mean, so that experience of doing that too. What was the name of the song again? I should have.
Back on the Block.
Yeah. How did that whole?
Well, that whole thing, like I said, he put the album together and he got, you know, the hottest dudes at that time. You know, me, right. Kane, I wasn't hot, but Kane and Ice-T, and we put it together. He had the song. You know, but see, and Quincy's thing, and he did it with Mike, but he did it best. He did it best with Michael Jackson because he had the best guy to work with.
Sure.
But even with his own stuff, he knew how to put the right people in the right place to make the songs work, and that's the difference between Thriller and Bad and Off the Wall and anything that Michael Jackson ever did before and after.
Right.
Because it was the work that he put in. It's just like even with Back on the Block, he put a lot of, you know, he brought in a lot of people to make that album, the album that it was. I think the only one of the only people that wasn't on the album was Michael, I believe.
Yeah. That
he should have had on the album. For some reason, Mike wasn't on the album.
I went back and listened to that record today, and it still holds up, man. That's some amazing stuff.
Yeah, so it's just like I tell people all the time. If Kanye West says he's a producer, and he could be a producer, you know what I mean? You know, I would say he's more of a beat arranger, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
So now, if Kanye West is a good producer or a great producer, then what does that make Quincy Jones?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
He should be off the charts, but they would, you know, like, you know, if Kanye West is here, you know, some people might put Quincy there.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. You know what I mean?
You know, the role of the producer is so many things too, and you know that, and you know that guy's ability to. I mean, that he can write horn arrangements, but you said it perfectly again. Like, you know, a great producer knows how to put people together and make that flow work, and that is the key to an extraordinary producer. And that guy is unquestionably one of the greats, possibly the greatest that ever was. I mean,
as far as strictly by the numbers,
yeah.
That Thriller album has got to be up to 50,000, right? I mean, 50 million right now.
I mean, that's another one of those records too. You can put on. We talked about this before. You can put on Human Nature right now, and it sounds like it's a brand new, fresh song. And that the ability to do that shit doesn't happen very often.
You have to definitely be, you know, that and that's his thing. He put the right people together, Rod Temperton and all those guys he had writing for him. You know, even this, you know, Greg Fillinganes, one of the guys that arranged the music. You know, the engineer. I mean, all of these guys were the top flight, first class. You know, I mean, they knew what they was there for. They knew, you know, the kind of music that they wanted to make, and they knew who they was making it for, and they dedicated it, you know, 100%. Like I said, that's the difference between anything that and the difference between anything that Michael Jackson made after or before. Yeah. You know, I mean, he just put a record out. I guarantee you, it's not a Quincy Jones record, and it don't have the same impact. I mean, it just don't.
You're right.
It's just not the same.
No,
you know?
Not in the least bit. So you've done a couple of reunions with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, right?
We did one or two.
Yeah. And how did those work? How was the dynamic when you were doing it?
Well, it didn't work the same because we didn't have the same type of practice. I mean, it was good to be up on stage with the guys, but if we're going to do it, like the main thing about Grandmaster Flash and the Fierce Five was we was the most well rehearsed group. And that was because of me, basically. Because I like to have things, I don't want to leave nothing up to guesswork when you on the stage. Some things you can improvise, but for the most part, you got to have everything. You know what you're going to do. You know the response is going to get, and then you know the reaction behind the response, and then you know the response behind that reaction. You got to know. You got everything have to be, basically scripted out.
Yeah.
And what the fellas just want to do is, they just want to get together, and go on stage and relive old times,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's cool, but that's not enough.
Agreed.
For Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the greatest group in the history of hip hop. That's not enough to just we don't need to go on stage unless it's going to be a big event, or unless we're going to do something like we're going to it's got to be the wow factor in it. It can't be like, okay, yeah, Flash and them got together. Oh yeah, they was all right. And that's basically what came about all the performances, because we didn't want to put. Nobody wants to put in the time to make it that, we just, we're going to practice for 2 or 3 days. And then, and so, it was cool, but for me, it was more anticlimactic. It was something that people want to see, but for me, it was anticlimactic because we didn't do what I thought we should have been doing.
Right. Totally. How did you start getting into working out? When did that whole thing start to happen?
Well, we was doing that even.
You did say,
even
early,
in the early days. We used to get high and work out. We used to get drunk and work out.
Our blood's fucking pumping like crazy.
Showing off like we by the pool and some girls. We got some champagne. We smoking and drinking and that's the barren way. So we just but it was just something that one of the guys in the group, because we started doing push-ups, so one of the guys in the group, Cowboy, he used to always do push-ups. And, it's like male ego, he go down and do some push-ups. I'm going to go down. I'm not going to have him be, more manly than me. So, and then after a while, the first time that I went in the gym, which was in 84, 90, one of them years. It'll be 30 years next year.
Okay.
But we went in the gym, and then I just got hooked on going to gyms, working out, and reading up on it and buying the supplements, and got into the bodybuilding and going to the bodybuilding shows, and it's just something that was just stuck. It's almost like eating, drinking, breathing, and working out. Yeah, it was all the same.
I mean, so what? You told me before off mic, but so what is your routine? Or I mean, certainly at your peak, when you were like, what was your biggest? What were you doing when you were like doing it the most?
Well, I at one point I started doing like a lot of heavy lifting. So we was squatting. I got my squat up to like about 495.
Jesus.
My bench was like maybe 365.
Man. Okay.
And then I injured my chest, and then. Now I still work out just as good, but I'm more or less into conditioning and being fit. So I do more cardio, and I still work out intense, but just moderate weight, and actually I got I'm bigger and in better shape than I've ever been.
That's great, man.
Just not as strong, but the look is still there.
That's great. You got into wrestling for a while, correct?
Yeah.
And you went to school for it?
Went to the wrestling school in Georgia. They had a school like outside of Atlanta.
Okay.
And it was a lot of politics. I think I'm still trying to pursue that whole wrestling thing, because it's just a good addition. It's like a good component to add to the entertainment.
Yeah.
And even they do it but I have a saying about wrestling. They'll let anybody wrestle, but they don't let everybody wrestle. Mm-hmm. So you just got to be a little further up the food chain, and then they'll, Mel, you can get in the ring and blah, 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 this, that, I mean, it's something good, you lock into a new audience. It's a good form of entertainment.
Sure.
And it's, just a good place to show off your physical attributes. I always loved wrestling, back in the Hulk Hogan days.
Oh, yeah, man.
Even before that with the AWA and the
Dusty
NWA
Rhodes,
and Dusty Rhodes and all them cats. And I just think it's a great form of entertainment.
It is. That's great, man. So when you guys got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man, that had to be kind of a surreal experience for you. It had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so what was that night like for you, if you don't mind?
Well, actually, I didn't. It didn't really dawn on me about how important it was, because those are one of those performances that I was talking about that was a little subpar as far as what we was doing.
Yeah.
But you know, they edited it so that on TV it came. You know, you didn't see what was going on.
Yeah.
But the thing that that struck me the most about that is, like, if you win a Grammy, the next year, you know, you'll get congratulated after you win the Grammy. The next year is not a big deal. You know what I mean? But it's like people that I didn't see. Like, if we got inducted that night, if I didn't see them for 3 years, that'd be, oh yeah, man, congratulations on that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. Or if I seen the same person 3 years in a row, they'll be like, and once again, congratulations on that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. So it was something extra.
Yeah.
You know, that's bigger than any Grammy. Is something way beyond that I didn't realize the impact. But like I said, even right to this day, people see me and they'll be like, oh yeah, once, and this is years, you know, 5 or 6 years deep.
Sure.
And they'll be like, oh yeah, and once again, congratulations on that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
like, that never goes away. It just never goes away.
And it never will. And that's amazing, man. And that's you seem to have a lot of firsts in your life, you know what I mean? Like that, you guys were the first hip hop group to get inducted, you know, the first rap Grammy. Like there's all this string of firsts for you that I was looking at it today when I was like preparing this stuff, and I was like, man, that is unbelievable.
Yeah,
really.
That's the benefits of being an old dude. you get to do everything first.
Hey man, fuck it. Like, you know, so that was 2007, right? Yeah, I think so. Around that time.
So.
Around that time.
One of them good old years.
Let's see. I only actually have 2 more questions. So you've been a part of a lot of songs that are, like I said before, like timeless and had this real significant impact on music, and were sampled a lot by other people. You know, The Message, It's Nasty, Sun City. How do you feel about their appreciation years later? I mean, here we are, man, years later, after all this stuff isn't. Their songs are in video games. There's songs that, like, younger kids are hearing and are like. I didn't get to tell you this. After we talked here a couple months ago, I spoke to some students at this place I work, and I was like, yeah, I talked to Grandmaster Melle Mel, and 19-year-old kids were like, holy shit, man, that's fucking unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, there is this timelessness to a lot of the stuff that you've been a part of. Are there points when you get, like, reflective with that and are like, fuck, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, like, you know, at the end of a career, or at the latter stage of a career, you have to, you know, there's sometimes you know, like, contemplating on how things went, or could it have went better, or, you know, what you could have did in the past, or what you could be doing now in the present to, you know, try to do something in the future. Yeah. And, you know, and after a while, you start to have to look at it, you know, you have to look at it philosophically, because, like, right now, what entertainment is more money related than talent driven.
Absolutely.
So if you were to look at it on that level, you know, maybe it wasn't all that great. Right. But if you were to look at it as a body of work and what that body of work did for society and for the music industry, then, I mean, we didn't do bad. I mean, you know, we came a long way. We went a long way, and, you know, we planted a flag. I mean, you know, it's like just being who we are. Yeah. And like I said, and what it meant to the industry, you know, what it meant to my friends.
Sure.
You know, we did pretty good. I mean, you know, it could have been better, but it couldn't be that much better, you know, on just a level of the achievement level. I mean, money wise, you know, but at this point, you know, if you don't have money, then you ain't supposed to look at things in terms of money. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like you have to look at it from a different angle, and that's the angle. I mean, we were very successful. We did what we had. We did a lot better. You know, we overachieved actually. You know what I mean? So
as far as new hip hop goes, are there any things you're into at all?
Not necessarily. Yeah. I mean, some of it, you know, because the mainstream stuff. I mean, obviously, there's some stuff out there that I like. And some of the mainstream stuff I like. But just the image of what it is and what it means, you know, what it means to what it did to the industry, you know, what it did to society is all is corny to me. It's not you know, it's not up to the standards, you know, that it needs to be. You know, not even as far as music-wise or just even the people that's doing the music, because it's more like non-music people, and then they infiltrated the music, but then they don't have the same respect for the music or the people that did the music that gave them an opportunity to do music. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like it could be a balance. It could be a mixture. It could be, you know, older guys doing stuff along with younger guys, or at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, it don't have to be, you know, everything is young and juvenile and street and hood. You know, it's not classy. It's just you know, it's really some low class. Is you know, and I mean, people could disagree with me, but when was the last important hip hop record? It's been a while. You know what I mean? It ain't been none of these guys. It ain't none. You know, none of that. None of the shit is important. It's almost not entertaining. I mean, it's more like nervous energy. Like, you know, this aggressiveness. You know, it's not really. You know, it's not naturally fun music. It's not, and it's not engaging. It's more like, you know, if you want to act like you from the hood, or you want to be that cool tough guy, then, you know, okay, you got that little escapism element into it, but it's not, you know, it's not what music should be at this stage. At this stage of hip hop, is not what the music should be.
You said something to me the last time we met that really kind of stuck with me, and I've told a lot of people, actually, man. We were talking about like modern hip hop production, and you said something. You said, like, listen, when we were coming up, our influences were country music, disco. We had all this body of music to pull from, and that's where it came from. A lot of these guys now who are producing hip hop, especially young guys, a lot of them are only really listening to just that genre. They're not expanding their way of thinking and like looking at like, oh, why don't we pull from this? They really just focus on that one thing, as opposed to like coming from, there's disco, there's soul, there's funk, there's R&B. That's so true, and I never really thought about it like that. Yeah,
because a lot of the guys ain't students of music; they're more or less students of the street. Mm-hmm. So it just made what it did. It made it turned the music game into the dope game, and then all the real dope dealers in the street, is no money there for them, so they just wasting their time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They spinning their wheels, like trying to make money that these dudes are saying that they made on the street, that they never made on the street. They're going to try to make that money. I mean, Nicky Barnes and them made it, but that's a whole nother era. It's not, the Kingpin era is over. Sure. So they just trying to be on the street, trying to be the next 50 Cent or Jay-Z, which is a lie. Mm-hmm. And they on the street spinning their wheels. And at the end of the day, the ghetto is permanent now. Because what we did, and what anybody that came before us did, was you grew up in the ghetto, but your whole mission in life is to leave the ghetto. Yeah. Now, you know, we representing Brooklyn. No, you're staying in Brooklyn. Yeah. There's a difference. No, you're right. So that's that's the main thing that that modern hip hop did to urban environments. It just made it so that it's a permanent situation for everybody except for them. So it's totally. You know, it's like almost like it's a lost cause now. The girl, you know, there's very little stories like the success story of, oh yeah, I grew up in the ghetto and you know, I went on to be, you know, a football player. Or, you know, it's minimal. You know, it's minimal. It's not like how it used to be. You know, like you know, or you know, I grew up in the ghetto. I'm gonna go on to be a doctor. You know, either people just want to be a dope dealer, like the average, you know, young kids. Most of them want to be dope dealers or rappers. Mm-hmm. And most of that, if you want to be a dope dealer or rapper, you're going to be a fake dope dealer or a fake rapper because you're not studying. Yeah. You're not studying hip-hop to do hip-hop. Right. You just listening to the last guy and you just going to say what he said. Yeah. So it's all fake, you know?
Totally, man. Mel, do you have anything you want to add? That was awesome.
No, that's basically it.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. It was a real pleasure, man.
Oh, love. Yes, sir.
You got it.
Bass. Dreams of passion, and all the while I think of you. A very strange reaction. The more I see, the more I do. Something like a phenomenon, baby. Telling your body to come along, but white lines blow away.
Man, that guy is something else. He really is great. I hope you enjoyed that. Once again, thanks to Mel. He's awesome. And a tremendous thanks again to Baron Ambrosia for putting everything together. He really was like I said, instrumental in getting this to happen. And, you know, it's not every day I get a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee on the podcast. And a living legend of music, hip-hop, all that, like, to talk to a guy who was that awesome. So thank you to Mel. Thank you to Baron. You guys are great. If you all could check out bringsustogether.com, you hit us on iTunes, rate it, write maybe a comment, a couple kind words, or unkind words. You know, whatever. It's really up to you. Check us out on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. You know the drill. I will see you guys soon. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one.
Pure as the driven snow. And now I'm having fun, baby. It's getting kinda low. I need some one-on-one, baby. Don't let it blow your mind away. Baby. Go till little highway. 'Cause white lines blow away. Blow! Rock it! Blow! A million magic crystals painted pure and white. A multi-million dollars. Almost overnight. Twice as sweet as sugar, twice as bitter as salt. And if you get hooked, baby, it's nobody else's fault, so don't do it. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Free. Rock. Rock. Blow. Higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. And don't ever come down. Freebase! Don't you get too high. Don't you get too high, baby. Turned you on. You really turn me on and on. 'Cause you gotta come down. My temperature is rising. When the thrill is gone. No, I don't want you to go. A street kid gets arrested, gonna do some time. He got out 3 years from now just to commit more crime. A businessman is caught with 24 kilos. He's out on bail and out of jail, and that's the way it goes. K, sugar. K, sugar. K. Athletes rejected. Governors corrected. Gangsters, thugs, and smugglers are thoroughly respected. The money gets divided. The women get excited. Now I'm broke and it's no joke. It's hard as hell to fight it. Don't buy it. Freeze! Rock! Freeze! Rock! Freeze! Rock! Freeze! Rock! Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Get higher, baby. Come on! White line. Vision dreams of passion. Flowing through my mind. And all the while I think of you. A very strange reaction. For us to unwind. The more I see, the more I do. Something like a phenomenon. Baby. Telling your body to come along. But white lines blow away. Little Jack Horner sitting on the corner with no shoes and clothes. This ain't funny, but he took his money and sniffed it up his nose.
Hey man, you want cops and blow?
Sure, what you got? Dust flakes and rocks.
I got China White, Mother Pearl, Ivory Flake. What you need?
Oh yeah, check it out, man. Just let me get a freeze.
Go ahead, man.
Do it.
Kill ya.
Yeah, man, that's raw. Ugh.